In 1971, the state of Wisconsin fined 3 Amish families for refusing to send their children to school beyond the 8th grade. During that time period, the state of Wisconsin mandated that all children attend school until they are 16. However, the Yoder, Miller, and Utsi families, who were Amish, believed that sending their children to public high school went against their religious beliefs. Therefore, they pulled their children, Frida Yoder, who was 15, Barbara Miller, who was also 15, and Verdon Utsi, who was 14, from school after graduating 8th grade in Wisconsin public schools. Amish people tend to live a life of simplicity and believe that worldly education is detrimental to their way of life. Traditionally, their children stop attending school around 8th grade in order to receive vocational training that allows them to continue carrying out jobs important to their community. Amish communities focus on agricultural and craftsmanship-oriented trades, which parents feel they can teach the kids themselves. Additionally, Amish people believe that values taught in public high school counteract their religious beliefs. For these reasons, the Yoder, Miller, and Utsi children were pulled from school. These 3 families were convicted in the Greene County Court and represented by Jones Yoder, one of the fathers involved in the case. Each defendant was fined $5 for breaking the compulsory attendance laws for the state of Wisconsin. A trial upheld these convictions, concluding that the state law was a reasonable and constitutional use of government power. Amish people do not typically believe in going to court to solve issues. For this reason, a Lutheran minister named Reverend William C. Freedom took interest in Amish legal difficulties. He founded the National Committee for Amish Religious Freedom and then provided them with legal counsel. Yoder then took the case to the state's Supreme Court. The state ultimately ruled in Yoder's favor, and this decision was later appealed by the state of Wisconsin to the United States Supreme Court.
My mother was living in Ohio when she was in grade school, and when she got to the 8th grade, she thought her school days were over. That was the norm. The Amish kids went to school through 8th grade. So the next year, she didn't go to school, and then the truant officer came around and said, "Oh, the law is now that you have to go to school till you're 16." And her parents didn't challenge that, and so my mother went to school until she was 16, got through, I think, 2.5 years of high school.
On petition of the state of Wisconsin, Berger Court granted the writ of cert in this case to review the decision of the Wisconsin Supreme Court holding that respondents' convictions of violating the state's compulsory school attendance law were invalid under the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. The case was argued in Supreme Court on December 8, 1971, and decided by the Berger Court. To reach a conclusion, the court used a 3-part test during their conferences. First, it asked whether the religious beliefs in question were sincerely held. Second, it asked whether the state law seriously affected those beliefs. After answering yes to the first 2 questions, the court went on to consider the balance between the state's interest against the free exercise interest of the Amish. In a unanimous decision, Chief Justice Berger wrote the opinion of the court, which stated that an individual's interest in the free exercise of religion under the First Amendment outweighed the state's interest in ensuring all students attend school beyond 8th grade. The court found that the values of secondary school were in sharp conflict with the fundamental mode of life mandated by the Amish religion. Evidence found that after 8th grade, the Amish provide vocational training for the children that prepares them for life in their community. Ultimately, the Supreme Court ruling was the same as the state Supreme Court ruling, that mandatory high school attendance for Amish children was a violation of the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment. The parents' fundamental right to freedom of religion was determined to outweigh the state's interest in educating its children. The law clerks for Chief Justice Warren E. Berger were William B. Elmore, Jr., C. Douglas Floyd, John H. Corns, and Richard W. Skillman. They were all law clerks between the years of 1971 to 1972. Also, Erwin Nathan L. Griswold was the Solicitor General that served during the case of Wisconsin v. Yoder. He was the 34th Solicitor General of the United States and served from October 1967 through June 1973.
The Supreme Court has upheld the right of Amish parents to keep their children out of school after the 8th grade in spite of compulsory attendance laws to the contrary. The court said the Amish, a devout religious sect, had shown their sincerity in their 250 years and noted that the ruling for them does not apply to newly created.
Although the decision was unanimous, Justice William O. Douglas filed a partial dissenting opinion, which is an opinion that disagrees with one part of the majority holding. Douglas argued that the decision to attend high school should not fall solely on the parents. He believed that the children should have been part of the trial to determine if they wanted to attend high school or not. There was also a concurring opinion written by Justice Stewart. While he agreed with the decision the court made, he claimed that the case would have greatly differed if the Amish faith did not allow for children to attend school at all. He believed that freedom of religion is important, but it should not completely counter the goal of the state in creating minimal education standards. In this case, there are also several amicus curiae briefs that were filed. These were briefs written by outside parties that had the goal of swaying the judges to the side of the argument they favored. These are written by Donald E. Showalter for the Mennonite Central Committee, by Boardman Nolan and Lee Boothby for the General Conference of the Seventh-day Activists, by William S. Ellis for the National Council of the Churches of Christ, by Nathan Lewin for the National Jewish Commission on Law and Public Affairs, and by Leo Pfeiffer for the Synagogue Council of America. Then, the oral arguments for this case occurred when the attorneys from both sides presented their positions, as well as answered the questions the judges may have. This is a clip of part of the oral arguments that took place in Wisconsin versus Yoder.
We think there are two issues here, really. First of all, is whether let me state it, whether or not respondents may select the time, the extent, and whether or not they will comply with the compulsory school attendance laws, and whether there is, somewhat more broadly stated, a constitutional right to conscientiously object to education.
Yes, but as I get it, Phil, am I wrong? We're not concerned here with whether the children have to go to school, Amish or not. We're concerned with whether Amish parents can be compelled under threat of criminal.
This case is a landmark use of the Free Exercise Clause, as the Supreme Court ultimately ruled that the parents' religious interests overrode the interests of the state. It demonstrates the state's inability to interfere with certain religious practices if said religious practices are well established and have historical backing. Now, Amish people everywhere have the right to establish their own schools or to withdraw from public school after 8th grade. Additionally, this case has a lasting impact, as it is often cited as basis for parents' right to educate their children outside of traditional public or private school.